Sin Fronteras, Western New York.
This is for you, mis hermanas y hermanos.
Where you can voice your thoughts on how we live, work, and play in Western New York.
Buffalo is in a renaissance, and Latinos are a huge part of our city's growth.
We want to hear your voice.
Llámame 837-1112.
Or hit us up on Facebook 24/7, 7 days a week. Talk with Samantha and Michele, Sin Fronteras, Western New York, every Friday at 1 on WUFO 1080 AM.
Huepa!
Presented by the Hispanic Heritage Council of Western New York, dedicated to preserving the history of Hispanics in Western New York for future generations. Sponsored by Goya. Si es Goya, tiene que ser bueno. You're listening to Sin Fronteras, Western New York at 1. Good afternoon, I'm Samantha Martinez.
And I'm Michele Agosto.
Today we'll talk to Hector Diaz, bass player for the Mambo Kings.
And Sin Fronteras, Western New York sits down with Parkinson, Director of Education and Community Engagement for the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra.
And 3 weeks after Hurricane Maria slammed into Puerto Rico, 89% of the island is still without power. And now, the Mambo Kings with Marinera. Sin Fronteras, Western New York at 1 starts right now. Sin Fronteras, Western New York is brought to you by our sponsor, Goya Foods. Si es Goya, tiene que ser bueno.
Tito, no es correcto que hagas después de tomar tu néctar Goya. Marita, niña, Benito.
Los néctares Goya son ricos, naturales y nutritivos, con más frutas que los demás. Tamarindo, pera, mango y muchos más. Saboréalos y un de tu boca surgirá. Néctares Goya, más fruta, más sabor.
Goya, tiene que ser bueno.
The time is 1:05. Sin Fronteras, Western New York is bringing you continuing coverage of the aftermath in Puerto Rico. It's been now 3 weeks since Hurricane Maria slammed in Puerto Rico, and the recovery efforts are going painfully slow. 45 people are dead, and at least 113 people are still missing. A staggering 89% of the island is without power, and almost half of the island does not have phone service, and 43% of Puerto Rico's banks are still closed. Hospitals are running low on medicine and fuel. Local officials say people have been drinking water from creeks contaminated by dead animals, which has led now to 2 deaths. This comes after a tweet from Trump yesterday saying, "We cannot keep FEMA, the military, the first responders, who have been amazing under the most difficult circumstances, in PR forever." End quote. Hopes for a DACA deal diminished dramatically after the White House put out an aggressive list of demands. The Trump administration wants tougher immigration and border security measures, crackdowns on security cities, green card restrictions, and money for the president's border wall. Those are all non-starters for Democrats, whose votes will be needed to okay a deal that would not let dreamers or the undocumented immigrants brought to the U.S. as children stay. President Trump said that he would end DACA, but gave Congress a 6-month window to come up with a fix. The Department of Homeland Security is reportedly looking into ways to change the nation's immigration system without waiting on Congress. Multiple sources say the department is considering subtle changes that would have big consequences, such as limiting protections for unaccompanied minors who come to the U.S. illegally, expanding the use of speedy deportation proceedings, and tightening visa programs in ways that could limit legal immigration. Coming up next, we'll talk to Hector Diaz, bass player for the Mambo Kings.
So we're waiting to get Hector Diaz on the phone, the bass player from the Mambo Kings, and we're really excited to get him online. But while we're waiting here, we're going to jump to our next guest until we get him live. And we're also very excited to have right in the studio Robin Parkinson, who happens to be the Director of Education and Community Engagement for the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so excited because the BPO is doing just incredible things when it comes to highlighting the diversity that the community of Buffalo has within its own borders and city, but also bringing in these amazing international stars to share with the wonderful constituents in Buffalo. So I'm curious. Talk a little bit about the Mambo Kings, which is why we're waiting for Hector to get on the phone. Why the Mambo Kings? Maybe talk a little bit about their music and talk about why you thought they'd be good for Buffalo.
Sure. Well, every year we try to celebrate Hispanic heritage, at least around Hispanic Heritage Month. And so this year we wanted to feature a Western New York group, the Mambo Kings. They are Rochester based, so we're really happy to bring them over here to Buffalo to play with the BPO. The BPO will be on stage with the Mambo Kings, so it's a really exciting collaboration between the two performing groups. And in addition to them playing, we also have some local student groups playing tomorrow night.
I'm so excited about that.
We have two groups from the Buffalo Public Schools, from Hutchinson Technical High School, and from Olmsted High School. And they'll both be playing some Latin hits themselves in the Mary Seton Room, which is the hall right across the hall from the main hall in Kleinhans. So people should come early and hear their fantastic performance before the Mambo Kings.
So they're the pre-concert before the Mambo Kings come on, and it sounds like you were the pre-concert for Hector Diaz, because I think we have him on the phone now. So Hector, are you online?
Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you so much for coming on the phone and joining us today on Sin Fronteras, Western New York.
Thank you, thank you.
So I know you're calling from far away from Rochester, I hear.
Really fun.
I was wondering if you can just share with our audience a little bit about the Mambo Kings and maybe the genre of music that you play and how long you've been a part of the Mambo Kings.
Okay, yes, I can share that. The Mambo Kings been together since 1999. Our director, Ricky Delaney, originally put a band together of about maybe 7 musicians, piano bass, large percussion section, large horn section, and kind of started, once we started playing with symphony orchestras, which was pretty much right before my time, the band seemed like it was too big. So I joined the band in 2007 here in Rochester. Unfortunately, the bass player that had been playing with the Mambo Kings prior to myself developed, I believe it was some type of brain cancer.
Oh, wow.
And unfortunately, he passed away. So
wow.
They asked me if I would be willing to, take over in his position. And of course, I agreed. So I've been actually with the band for the past 10 years.
Wow.
Hi, Hector. This is Samantha Martinez, co-host of Sin Fronteras West New York. How are you?
Good, Samantha. I'm good, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm well, thank you. So if you could break this down for me. So the music that you play is a fusion of Afro-Cuban rhythm with contemporary jazz. Can you break that down for me musically? What does that mean?
So I can almost hear and try to make out what you are saying. But as far as the Afro-Cuban,
Samantha, move your mic closer to your mouth.
Very unique in the sense that We have music, percussion, obviously from the roots of Africa. The Cuban comes with what we called in the Spanish culture the clave, which is kind of our metronome that we use to keep timing and make sure that everything is where it needs to fall in. And then we incorporate the American jazz music, so we call it Latin jazz. So if folks are familiar with the likes of Tito Puente, that is Latin jazz. There's a couple, other well-known musicians, Machito, talking about a modern day Mr. Pedro Martinez, who does a form of Latin music called timba, which is very, syncopated rhythms and percussion, and I can go on and explain the complications with that type of music.
Right.
That sounds extremely higher level. Can you talk to me about the process? The process of, I'm sure it didn't come easy to bring all those different sounds and fusions together. Can you tell me the story behind that?
Well, the story is that, most of the guys in the band, as you may know with any musician, we have a love for the music. So, when I explain Latin music in general is, wanting to kind of feel attracted to that Latin pulse that, that it is very familiar with the salsa music, very, how would you say, very common in merengue music, and now with today's modern bachata music, even to a point where you have R&B artists like Usher and Drake, who are incorporating, are collaborating with some of the Latin musicians and doing, arrangements in Spanish. So it's very, very interesting. So, but the Latin jazz, how we start off, and usually when we put together a new tune, our musical director, Rick Delaney, will probably bring something to the table. And let's take, for example, like we do a Latin version of Day Tripper by the Beatles.
Oh, that's cool.
And so he'll bring, I like this tune, and let's see how we can work it out. So we'll put, some type of a Latin rhythm, percussion to it, and it gives us a chance. I mean, John, not so much John Giovanni, our sax player, because he's our melody person. But for the most part, what happens is that we try to bring some type of a Latin feel to these arrangements.
Well, that's something that's really interesting, because what I've noticed, it's like an explosion of Latin fusion everywhere, like from Justin Bieber, Despacito, and all this kind of stuff. So I'm wondering in the reverse. So it seems like many cultures are embracing the Latin sound. Do you find that? Because I know you don't just travel, within New York or within the United States, but I know you've traveled internationally. So how do you? What's your sense of their enjoyment, their yearning for this Latin fusion kind of music?
Well, I'm going to be honest. In playing, like I mentioned, past 10 years with the symphony scene, after we usually end the concert, we'll go backstage and we get a chance to meet with people from the orchestra and people from the audience.
That's nice.
And I think the common the common response that we've gotten from the public is that they weren't expecting this.
That's interesting.
So I think to answer the question, I think what happens is that first of all, you understand the Latin music and the hot Latin rhythms that come with that, and now you're adding the classical piece. It's not common, but when you do hear it, it's like, wow, this is incredible. And personally, that was my experience. Our first orchestra, my first orchestra gig, was with the Portland Symphony Orchestra, and I had never rehearsed with the orchestra, but that first rehearsal, I was like, my hairs on my arms were like standing on end, because I was like, this is amazing.
Right.
Who would have thought that playing a Beatles tune with a Latin backbeat with symphony would work, you know, and it's just an incredible, amazing experience.
Right, that is amazing. I have just another couple questions for you, and this is Michele. So I know that you're a Buffalo kid, right? Born and raised?
Yes.
Yes.
Born and raised.
All right. So I'm curious where you got your inclination for music. Was that something that was just part of who you were? Was it something that you learned through school? Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's
Bring it back. Bring it back.
Back to day one. Okay, I was born at Sisters Hospital over there on Main Street.
He's really bringing it back.
Interesting enough, my 3 kids were also born in that same hospital.
Okay.
So I was born at Sisters Hospital, raised primarily on the east side and later on the west side of Buffalo. I attended School 76, which is now Herman Badillo School.
Yes, it is.
I attended School 38, which is on Vermont Street,
Right.
on the west side.
Right.
And in particular, I remember as a kid, always into music.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, one of the nice things I used to like about going to school back then was the field trips.
Right.
And in particular was going to see the Buffalo Philharmonic play. And I always, you know, loved music with passion. And I was like, man, I'd love to be on that stage these days and play with the symphony orchestra. And
Check that
we
out.
had the opportunity to do that. I want to say back in 2008, 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of like a dream come true.
Wow.
So to be able to, as a kid, sit in a regular seat and dream of being on stage, and actually having that come to reality like mega years later, it's amazing.
Well, that is amazing, and I want you to know we have Robin Parkinson from the BPO sitting with us in the studio, and she was so happy that you said that. She was just like so happy. So you made it. Go ahead. I'm
It's
sorry.
amazing. I mean, and you know, and Buffalo Philharmonic is the top-notch orchestra. You know, so like I said, the last time we played with them a few years back, they like grabbed the music like they've been playing it, you know, on a daily basis.
Right. Well, I want. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just also wanted to mention. I know that my band teacher, Mr. Ben Boyer.
Oh, Ben Boyer.
Out there.
Yes, he does.
Promoting the concert, and I've had a couple alumni from the Buffalo Academy for Visual and Performing Arts who have also, you know, spread the word that I'll be there. And again, I'm so honored to have people like that in my corner that still remember and appreciate, you know, good music.
Yeah, well, that's great because Ben Boyer was a great teacher, and I know him, and he's enjoying his new music store world. So, Northtown, I think it's called. We'll put a plug in for him. So I'm going to end with just this, since you're talking about people that care about you and love you. I happen to be sitting at a breakfast meeting with someone who told me that apparently you're your mom's favorite child. Because your sister said your mom chose the Mambo Kings over the dinner she's having tomorrow. Is that true?
Oh, yeah. I mean, my parents since day one have been my greatest fans, my greatest supporters.
Yeah.
You know, as a kid, they made sure that I had time to practice, a space to practice, instruments to use. And like I said, my parents always made sure that musically I was well taken care of.
Right.
Thank you, Hector, for your time. We really appreciate having you on the show.
Thank you so much. We really do appreciate your
Thank
time.
you for the time, and thank you for having me as a guest. And more than welcome to, at any other moment that you need me to be available.
Thank you, and good luck tomorrow.
Definitely, thank you, and hope to see everyone tomorrow as well.
When we come back, Sin Fronteras West New York sits down with Robin Parkinson, Director of Education and Community Engagement from the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra. And now a word from our sponsor.
Más sabor.
Soya tiene que ser bueno.
And we are back with Robin Parkinson, Director of the Education and Community Engagement for the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra. Thank you, Robin, for coming.
Oh, my pleasure.
So if you could talk to me a little bit about, there's something new going on at the Buffalo Philharmonic. There is the Diversity Council. If you can tell me a little bit more about the Diversity Council, what does that involve?
Yes, I would love to, but first I just want to say that it makes me so happy to hear grown adults talk about their experience as children coming to the BPO, because one of the hats that I do wear at the orchestra is bringing in the school groups for those youth concerts, which have been happening since the beginning of the orchestra back in the 1930s, and you can just see the impact continue through the generations, and it's really fun to hear that.
It is great.
So the Diversity Council was formed last spring, and the purpose is really to help the orchestra serve its mission, which is to serve the whole community. And we can't do that without community input. So we formalized our commitment to presenting diverse programming, supporting artists of color, and engaging with all of Western New York in a meaningful way by forming this Diversity Council, which is comprised of community leaders, BPO staff, and musicians. And I'm happy to say that one of our community leaders is sitting in this room right now. Thank you, Michele Augusto, for serving on our council.
It's my pleasure, my honor.
So this really also helps the BPO take its place in a national movement to foster greater diversity in the classical music world. All over the U.S. and the world, all orchestras are trying to really foster diversity both on stage and behind the scenes and in the audience. And this is a great way for us to do that.
Yeah.
Robin, if we can dig a little deeper, what does that look like when you guys meet together? What does that look like? What are the goals?
Well, the council serves us both in an advisory capacity, but also boots on the ground. And one example of that is this fall, we really wanted to reach out directly into the community to help celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. And so Michele and Kaz Rodriguez, two members of our council, helped us organize 4 visits into West Side Spanish language church services. So on September 24th, we visited Holy Angels and Holy Cross churches. And this Sunday, October 15th, we will be at Destiny International and the First Methodist on Virginia Street. And one of our violists, John Costello, he's part of the Puerto Rican community here. And he put together a string quartet, and he found arrangements of a Cuban piece called La Comparsa and a Puerto Rican song, please forgive my
pronunciation, it's fine, I'm sure.
And Mi Viejo San Juan.
Yes,
Nice.
not bad.
That's pretty good.
Thank you.
Pretty good.
And so the string quartet played, and John spoke, and it was really moving because when they played the Puerto Rican song, both congregations broke out into song and sang with
beautiful.
the quartet. So it was really meaningful. Doing these kinds of visits is meaningful for us because Client Hands, our home, is on the west side. So it's really a great way for us to connect to our neighbors.
That's wonderful. And I do want to mention before we go, because I know you're short on time, but at the Mambo Kings concert, you're also doing some Puerto Rican hurricane relief. Are you doing
Yes.
Okay.
In partnership with the Hispanic Heritage Council, we're collecting donations for the Puerto Rico Hurricane Maria Relief Fund. So, which I believe is also on the website and the Facebook and GoFundMe. So there's lots of ways to do that, but at the concert we will be collecting donations there as well.
Excellent. So if you have any questions about the Mambo Kings or any events that are coming up, you want to go to their website, which is www.bpo.org, or you can go to the Hispanic Heritage WNY.org, and you can find also the BPO events, including Salsa for the Cure happening tonight, and all sorts of other events. So please check on in. Thank you so much, and thank you, Robin.
My pleasure.
Thanks for joining us for Sin Fronteras Western New York every Friday at 1. Remember, you can always catch Sin Fronteras Western New York online and on our Facebook page whenever you want, all the time, 24/7.
And now for our closing song from the Mambo Kings, Danzón. And thank you all for listening. Have a great night. Adios. Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. Thank you all for listening and hope to see you soon. Catch the Mambo Kings. Goodbye.
Ciao.